This is unedited real talk right now. I am here with Chris Craps, former corrections officer at Ware State Prison, and he's here to let us know or talk to us about inside the walls now that he's outside of corrections. What makes his story even more interesting and also disgraceful for the way the warden has treated him there and other people is he's also a service member, a military service member that was given his deployment instructions. And I think I would just let him unfold that story so that you can hear how this place not only has abused inmates and manipulated the system, but and officers as well, but now they're just disgraceful to our military servicemen who fight for the freedoms that we enjoy over in this country. So, Mr. Craps, would you please share your story and why are we here today?
All right, like I said, my name is Chris Craps. I've worked for corrections for about 12 years now. I worked at Ware State Prison for about a year, about 2 years ago, and I just currently work at Ware State Prison, going on almost another year, and I'm also a service member in the Army Reserves for going on 3 years. This whole story takes back 2 years ago when I first applied at Ware State Prison. We have lockdown units, which is where I was assigned to working, which is a 2-man unit, which you're basically by yourself. We have 2 men locked down behind these dorms, and we have count procedures as well, where you have to go in and do 15 to 30-minute count. Well, I asked for help with a supervisor one time to help me count, and he would not help me count. And I got wrote up and in trouble by the warden for counting by myself. He stated to me if I counted by myself again, I would be held liable for whatever might happen to said inmate against policy, take my money, or fire me. So about a couple months go by, an inmate actually did indeed hang himself and lost his life inside that dorm. This happened on a different shift of mine. But when I came back to work, I was assigned that same dorm, so I knew we need to count. I asked my fellow officers to help me count. They said they didn't have to do it because there was no cameras. I said, you are aware an inmate just passed away. I said, it's just an inmate. So I asked my sergeant. He said, it's up to you. Really don't have to count. There's just no cameras. I knew that was the wrong answer. So I went to my lieutenant at the time. He said, you know what? I'll just put you in a different building. I said, it still doesn't help the fact that we didn't count. He insisted I go back to that building. I said, as soon as I go back down there, we're going to know that I said we didn't count, and we're going to get something bad's going to happen, and we're all going to be fired. So he said, you know what, just go work a different building and just be done with it. I said, no sir, I think I'll just walk out the gate and go ask the warden to help me count in the morning. It was my 2 days off, so when I came back, I talked to the warden. He had told me at the time that I'd been fired for walking off of the job. I showed him my documentation, my witness statements, everything. I made double copies of everything. And he said, can you prove it? And they pulled the camera from the next door and saw that paperwork on that supervisor's desk. I immediately got my job back, and I'm not sure what became of that supervisor. About another month goes by. After working in corrections for so long, I wanted to do something better for myself. So I signed up for the military. So I gave that same supervisor my military orders to go to basic training for those 10 weeks. So upon coming back from military training, I was told I was fired again for a no-call, no-show for 3 days, which is our policy. No call, no show, we fired you. So I had to fight to get my job back. My wife went in there during an audit because we talked to a military lawyer who said while you're on basic training, you cannot be terminated because you were serving your country. So my wife and the lawyer insisted either give you your job back or he's going to come in there and figure out what's going on. I immediately got my job back, an apology. So I continued working. And then I just got tired of treating really bad after that by the same supervisor. They got stuck in the worst possible dorms doing the worst possible shift by myself. So I said, it's not for me, I'm going to pursue a different career. Things didn't work out, so I had to bite the bullet and go back to Ware State Prison a year later. But upon coming back, I had to pay a $400 training fee because my certifications had lapsed. So I was struggling to get that $400, and this is around Christmas time, plus having 2 small children. So after I got a hold of Atlanta, they told me, being as you were deployed, your certifications, we can waive that $400. That was a blessing. I got my job back. As of right now, I would have been there almost a year in December. I have drill days that I have to go and do drill So these are mandatory days I have to go. And I also have medical that I have to go to be status ready at all times. Found out my wife was pregnant at the time, because you're here recently. She is now almost 32 weeks pregnant and having medical issues due to prior conditions and scoliosis, where she has written documentation from her doctor stating that she has scoliosis and she's high risk and just needs a lot of help around the house. Kids are in school, wife's pregnant, military. So I gave them the paperwork and said, hey, can I take family leave at this time? They said, we'll see what we can do. And on top of that, I also received military deployment orders to go across seas, which I cannot state at this time. But I am going to be going for almost a year. So my baby's due date will be here December 12th. I'll be deploying almost the day after Christmas. I have a week and a half to spend with my firstborn son. So what I was trying to do is see if I could take family leave, which I'm entitled for FMLA for, I believe, 12 weeks. It's unpaid. It is unpaid. I do know that. I was told it's only for the bonding time with the child, which is correct. After the child is born, the father can bond time, unless there is a medical issue, which there was. I received that documentation, put together a pamphlet, made the copies. I spoke to the warden secretary, gave her a copy. The HR lady gave her a copy, put it in my first shift supervisor's box. That's over. He's actually my boss, my supervisor. Gave him a copy in his mailbox and requested FMLA leave due to my wife being pregnant, about to deploy. I needed time to get my family right and to get ready for deployment and take care of my firstborn son. Well, I never heard back from the prison. On the way out that same day, I spoke to the warden who was in the parking lot. He said he would take care of it and let me know something. So I presumed with the medical orders and military that everything would be okay because I have to be home for my wife. I cannot come to work. So I'm at the house taking care of my wife, and then I never received a phone call or anything. I had got a letter in the mail recently stating that I was terminated for not coming to work for 5 days. My separation paper says presumptive resignation. I would not resign with the baby on the way. It's 32 weeks pregnant, Christmas time, holidays, and about to deploy. I would not resign. After doing it for 12 years, I love corrections. Good days and bad days. Mostly the bad days were at Ware State Prison. At this time, I'm unemployed, still trying to find work and take care of my wife, who was, like I said, 32 weeks pregnant, and Christmas and military. I went and spoke to the HR lady. She told me it was my fault for not contacting my supervisor for those days that I was out of work. I asked her, ma'am, do I have to call my supervisor every day to explain my wife's status? She said, you still should have called your supervisor, and that I can fight it if I want to get my job back. And still this day, I'm still trying to get my job back, but at this point, I'm just done, ready to walk away and start a new career.
Mr. Kraft, and I noticed I'm sure it's just your character of respect. You haven't mentioned any names. And
no, sir.
You're not trying to throw anybody under the bus.
No,
here.
there's a lot of good people that work there and do their job, and I would not sacrifice their job or their employment status. Like I said, there's a lot of good people that actually do their job there, and there's a lot of people that really don't. So I'm not going to call out any names. These individuals know who they are, and I'm out to see what I can do to probably either get my job back, which I said I really don't want. I just want this to get out there to prevent it from happening to other service members and any other correctional officers that are trying to go work at Ware State Prison. I tried contacting the regional director, and he told me that being we are short-staffed, that they had the tactical response team there. So he said he does not see why it would be an issue for me to take leave because they are now in charge of the facility to get it back right until we can get more help. I was told my FMLA was denied, which I can understand why it was denied short-staffed, but I was a no-call, no-show for 5 days. But the policy is a 3-day no-call, no-show. Why was I not fired on my paperwork after those 3 days? Why is it presumed resignation, resigned after 5 days? I never signed anything, and as of right now, I've not received my last paycheck until I turn in the uniforms. Just trying to figure out what's going on and where I can go with it from here.
So you did miss 3 days without contacting anyone?
I missed 5 days, apparently to the paperwork. I gave all this to HR, the warden's secretary, and I put it in my supervisor's box. When you call to work, you can never get an answer because the phone is always busy.
So you did.
Yes, I did.
You attempted everything in your power other than just walking and pushing your way in there and saying, "Hey, I'm not going to make it."
Exactly.
So that being said, now I do appreciate the integrity of not trying to cost anyone else their employment, and you're not even trying to throw anyone under the bus. So that does speak volumes of your character. And I understand that you will be going off soon, and there are drills and different things like that have to be done, because we don't want service members to just have to go. They don't just go overseas and not be checked out. They don't go over there untrained and unprepared. But I'm under the belief, and I believe there are federal case code and laws and stuff that are in place to protect service members and military from being mistreated and basically just disgraced all the way around. Now, I'm just curious because, back in August 1st, I believe there was a prison riot.
Yes.
You were employed at that present time?
Yes, sir, I was.
Okay. Can you share just a little bit, because you were inside the walls at that time, can you share just a little bit of that day or that event?
That event, I actually had hospital detail. I was at the hospital and was only unaware of what was going on inside the walls through Facebook and media. So we really had no idea what was going on until I spoke firsthand with the individuals that were involved.
Okay. And can you tell me what it was like there immediately after that when you came back to work?
Immediately after, pretty much the only people that showed up for work were the officers that were at hospital detail. Everybody was shooken up, which is completely understandable after an incident like that. I was told to go work H building, G building, J, pretty much all lockdown with 50 people. So if you add it all up, that's 400 lockdown individuals. That's 15-minute post checks for these inmates. I'm in charge of 400 of them. And the only set of keys I have are emergency keys, the same ones that were snatched and taken to get out in the first place. So I have to try to feed 400 inmates by myself.
Wow. And I'm sure you get distracted at times when you've got that many inmates and can be that overwhelmed.
Yeah.
So after that, did they try to fix anything in there? I know it was understaffed. I'm quite aware of that. Even though there were mainstream media places that suggested it was just an upset. Would you have called it just an upset, or
no, definitely not an upset.
An outburst?
Not an outburst.
So it was a full-on riot.
Yes.
So the videos that were coming all over Facebook and that were also shared on our page and stuff, those were true videos? There was not enactments?
No, the true videos.
Okay, because some people did comment that they were acting and that was fake.
No, there's no acting.
Okay.
The ones that state they have no power, that's due to them popping the outlets to smoke K2 strips and drugs. The ones that state they have no water, it's from them breaking their toilets to steal the metal pipes out the back to further injure staff or other inmates. Half of them get their water turned off for a short period of time due to flooding and causing more upset to create another riot or a outbreak inside the walls.
Since August the 1st, has there been any more deaths, suicides, or attempted murders or suicides?
When I came back from military orders, I was told that another inmate had passed away. I'm not sure or clarified on the actual events that took place, but I do know another inmate did pass away right after the incident.
Wow. And you just kind of heard what happened there, so you wasn't
I was
there.
not there to verify.
So that being said, are they working on this? Are they attempting to try to facilitate the needs of the officers and inmates?
With me working night shift, I have no idea what goes on during the day.
Okay.
But we had the, I'm not sure what they're called, but it's like the special response team that comes out, helps clean, sweep. They replaced the plexiglass on the windows. However, the inmates in the lockdown dorms, the doors are still malfunctioning and they were kicking the doors open while you were working by yourself. So I do not know how you're accounting these inmates because there's only 7 of you to a whole facility. Like I said, they are kicking doors open and running out on the officers to steal food and to actually injure other officers. I actually witnessed that myself on a fellow officer, which I'm not going to state his name. So you have to work these dormants by yourself, go in there and count 15 minutes and feed them and worry about the doors being kicked open. The only way these doors come open is with a key, which is the emergency key. But we also have these computers that has the software. You push a button, the doors come open. We do not have those in some of these lockdown units. The TVs and computers were destroyed or taken out. So you have no idea whether or not these doors are locked other than a red or a green light. But the inmates, they'll take belts or anything and wedge it in between these doors and pop the door open on you. So you have to literally defend yourself and you have nothing. Half the equipment's damaged, or it's very hard to get the equipment to defend yourself. So I think it would be in my best interest and my family's best interest if I just try to find me a different career.
Yes, sir. And I agree full-heartedly that with that much trouble, and it seems like you're getting trouble from inmates who are in there that had actually broken the law to be in there, but then you're also getting just as much trouble from the administrators and the higher-ups.
Yes.
So you're stuck. Now, did they ever treat you indifferently because you had those papers to leave? Did they ever, when they knew that you were going to be deployed, were you ever treated just down or pushed off?
One of the HR ladies at the time told me that whenever I came back the second time, that I do not need to do what I did the last time. Instead of giving the paperwork to my supervisor, I should have gave it to the HR lady, which I did, but I guess they misplaced it. So this time I made sure I made all those copies and gave it to HR. But apparently on my termination papers, I should have gave it to my supervisor and called him every day.
So the first time you give it to your supervisor, then they say give it to HR. So then the second time you give it to HR, and then you're supposed to give it to the supervisor.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Sounds like they just kind of shuffled you back and forth to do whatever they wanted to with. Since that right, what is the turnover rate there at the prison, if you don't mind? I know this has probably not a lot to do with it, but what is the turnover rate, would you think?
Pretty bad.
Even
before the riot. It's pretty bad.
So I'm looking here, and you know, this is medical paperwork, so we're not going to show all of it, but I'm looking here at a very recent medical letter that is from actually a medical office here in Waycross, and they handle family care and internal medicine and other things as well. A pretty good, well-known doctor in this area as well signed this, and it's stating that your wife has certain medical issues, and with her being this far along in her pregnancy, and it also says here that there's been issues of you falling while pregnant. So is that why you felt like you needed to be home a little bit more?
Yes, sir.
And to prepare not only for your deployment, because I know that has to be a mental thing as well.
Yes, sir.
You not only physically prepare yourself, but you have to emotionally and mentally prepare yourself.
Yes, sir.
And with her being so far along and falling and having other pre-existing medical conditions, you wanted to do whatever was necessary to make sure your child is born safely and alive.
And after I leave, she'll be by herself with the baby for a year.
Right. So we have a doctor's typed up and signed information about your wife's conditions, and we have case law that was put in effect, a federal case law to protect military service men and women from being mistreated in these situations. And then we also have notice of separation paperwork. So it seems here everything that you've done, and I guess the first time maybe you didn't make enough copies, so you knew the second time around, hey,
Yes,
I got to
sir.
protect myself. So that was a good idea. Well, I appreciate you coming and sharing the story with us, and because some of these are medical papers, I don't think we need to put these on our page because of, there are HIPAA laws, but you can tell your own. You can tell what's happening in your life, and you can tell because it's your wife. But I don't think it'd just be fair for us to put that out there. Also, the deployment papers, we're not going to put those out there because I wouldn't want anyone attempting to attack any kind of bases or know exactly where you're going to be to retaliate. I just wouldn't want that. And then, the doctor's excuses. So I don't want anybody going back against that. So, but you have all the paperwork in place. I'm sorry. Now, I can't apologize for incompetent leadership. But I will apologize on behalf of, as a person, that you shouldn't be treated like, even if you weren't a service member, you shouldn't be treated like that as a wife of a service member, as a mother and stepmother and soon to be new mother. So thank y'all for reaching out, and
Appreciate it.
I'm really sorry that this has happened, but I do agree with you.
Now,
Find something better than that, because you deserve better than that. And you deserve better than that. And these young ladies here, and this, you said son?
yes, sir.
This son deserves better than that. So just lead by example. And as I said earlier, I could tell by your comments of not putting people out there, the integrity, the character that's within you. Pass that on to your children. Continue to lead by example. Maybe the prison system, Department of Corrections, especially after the election season, because it seems like that's what this is all about. They're just trying to wait things out. Maybe they'll decide to put someone in place that can actually run this place before we end up with murderers and rapists that get, now everybody in there's not murderers, but before something even worse happens.
Yeah.
So thank y'all for your time.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you for sharing this story, and of course it is unedited, real talk right now.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
y'all. I'm AKA Dad, the cameraman, and I am here also with Kimmy Faith. Y'all have a great day.
Appreciate it.
You too.